Hello, True Health Seeker. I have a very exciting announcement. I have spent over a year, I've spent about 14 months collecting all of my information that I use with my clients for ending anxiety. And I created an online program. I'm very excited about it. We just launched it. And for you, for free, I have a webinar where I teach you 2 powerful mind tricks for removing anxiety, ending worry, and controlling fear so it stops controlling you and your life. In my free webinar, you will learn what causes anxiety and how to stop it, the science behind the mind-body connection, overcoming fear of public speaking, getting unstuck, ending that fear of things not working out, ending procrastination and overwhelm, and feeling excited, grounded, and calm instead of fear and worry. I have so much to teach you in my free webinar, and I'm really excited for you to come check it out. Go to freeyouranxiety.com/webinar. That's freeyouranxiety.com/webinar, or look in the show notes of today's podcast and you'll see the link there so you can jump into the webinar and learn all these wonderful, powerful tools that will end your anxiety and create excitement and happiness instead. Go to freeyouranxiety.com/webinar and sign up now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next live webinar. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 215. I am thrilled to have with us a wonderful guest who's going to teach us how to get rid of skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis, these conditions that may have plagued you your entire life, or you may have just developed it and you're ready to get rid of it already. Denise Henry, I'm so excited to have you here. I love your story. I love the work that you do. I'm thrilled that you are not only a healer yourself, but you're also a listener of the Learn True Health podcast. So it's doubly exciting for me to have you here today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we definitely want to jump into your story because you have an amazing one. First, I'd love to hear what kind of impact has the Learn True Health podcast had on you, especially coming from such a holistic background?
It's kind of compiles all the things that I'd love to learn. So I would recommend it to anyone who's searching for natural solutions to really anything going on in your life. I've loved the podcasts that involve recipes and that are about raw foods or new products that you haven't tried, like the goat's milk. I love the story with the woman with the goat farm. There were a couple other natural healers that it amazes me how much information you can get into your 1.5 hour show.
It's so funny. I've actually had someone complain that the show's too long, and I'm sure that everyone else is going, no, I love it.
Right?
I don't even look at a clock. I actually tell the guests, like, I know we book 90 minutes, from start to finish, but my interviews will last anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes and sometimes a bit longer, and they're okay with that as a guest. And I say, I'm really here to get value out of you for the listener, and so I don't put a time limit on you. And the guests find it really refreshing. Even Jeffrey Smith, who's the director of many great documentaries, and he's an author as well, and he is an advocate for the anti-GMO movement. When I had him on the show, after the show, he said it was one of his best interviews because normally he's used to having a time constraint, like a 30-minute interview where he doesn't get to share stories. He said to me, I got to share stories that I never get to share. So now everyone's going to go back and listen to that interview if they haven't already. It was a great one. But I understand that it's hard to listen sometimes to a 2-hour interview. But my point is I want to make sure that I extract as much great actionable steps and information for the listener so they can really walk away having something tangible that can change their life. And so I'm really glad that is something that you have gotten out of it. And I love the goat's milk one. I'm such a hippie. I use all kinds of those natural deodorants, and I kind of walk around smelling bad all the time because those deodorants don't work until I did the goat's milk interview. And when she said that her teenage sons use the deodorant that she makes from scratch, and it works, and they work on the farm. If sweaty teenage farm boys don't smell with an all natural deodorant, I immediately bought it. and I just ran out and I had to buy more because this is the first natural deodorant in my life. And I've been using like the salt crystal since I
Mhm.
was before I hit puberty because my mom used to use it. So like I have been using natural deodorants since the 80s and none of them have worked, and so I'm so excited. So yeah, the goat milk stuff, natural deodorant, just love that one, and you're right, I do love, getting recipes out of people. In fact, I'm gonna get some recipes out of you before this interview is over,
Yeah.
so that's very exciting. Awesome, well, thank you for being a listener, and thank you for, coming here today to teach our wonderful listeners about how they can heal their skin. I'd love for you to start by sharing your story because you have such an amazing one.
Definitely. So, my struggle with eczema and allergies, which were exacerbated by the eczema, they kind of work together to drive you crazy, started when I was very young. And after talking to my mother, we couldn't really pinpoint when it happened. But I was about 3 months old, and I had just been diagnosed with an ear infection from my little baby swim classes. And so I had been put on amoxicillin. And after I had been put on this amoxicillin, she said about a week later, I started reacting to animals and to dairy. And this was also around the time when I started eating solid foods. So she wasn't sure exactly what it was that was triggering this reaction. And so I started reacting to dairy. So they pulled dairy out of my food. We had to get rid of animals. I remember her getting rid of all my stuffed animals because they were dust collectors. She would vacuum the walls, make sure the floors were vacuumed. We started, I was wearing corduroys and jelly shoes. For some reason, this is what the doctor said would heal my skin. So I started at a very young age pulling certain things out of my environment, but still not knowing exactly what was triggering my allergies. And after many, many years of going to the dermatologist and them saying, you can't heal eczema, it's an autoimmune disease, there's no solution for it, and they would prescribe steroid creams. Well, steroid creams you build immunity to. So then you need a stronger steroid cream. And while they're actually breaking down your skin, they're relieving your itch. So it's kind of, a double-edged sword. You really don't know what it's doing to your body. And so they would prescribe me steroid creams. And some of them even told me you have to take allergy pills every day of your life.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, I don't want to have any like vitamins are one thing, but I don't want to medicate myself every day of my life. And throughout my life, I was avoiding cats and dogs. I couldn't pet them or love on them, even though I love animals. And I would tell my friends, it's not that I don't like your dogs, I love them. I just can't pet them. So I would have to avoid certain things that I loved. And it wasn't until I decided to embark on a self-healing journey, I guess, if you will. I decided to go to Southeast Asia. And I created my spreadsheet and I had decided where I was going to go. And I had my spreadsheet up on Google Docs so that my family could see where I was going since I was traveling alone. And I got to Malaysia, where I was volunteering at a small resort near Kuala Lumpur for a month. And after I was there for about a week, maybe a week and a half, my eczema started flaring up really bad. I was itching to the point that my ankles and hands were raw and bloody. And when I left the showers, because I call it a resort, but it was really outside. So, like, the front desk was outside, it was a table in the dirt. And the sleeping quarters were about a 5-minute walk from the showers through the dust. So after you showered, you would walk to your sleeping quarters, and I would try to walk very lightly so that I wouldn't get coated in dust after I smeared myself with all the lotions that I brought with me. And then I would get back into the room, and I was just itching like crazy. And after about 3 weeks, because I volunteered for a month there, I finally talked to the man who owned the resort, and he told me that they had extremely high levels of fecal coliform bacteria. And so the limestone pools that contain this bacteria that the guests were swimming in and I was swimming in, A lot of other people didn't react to it because they don't have hypersensitive skin like I did. Um, so we were swimming in the pools, and then that same water was being pumped into the showers, and then also into our drinking water.
Mm.
And even though I was filtering my drinking water, I had one of those Sawyer filters that I put in line in my camel pack so that I was ultra filtering it, even though they filtered it once for us, once or twice. Um, and I was also using alkaline drops in my water. So I thought that I was keeping myself safe by making sure my water was clear. And I also, after about a week and a half there, I started eating pretty plainly. So I wasn't eating their chili sauces or the peanut sauces or any. I wasn't eating any of the noodles because I know they contain gluten. And I couldn't figure out what was bothering my skin. And I was in the middle of the jungle, so every single time a fly landed on me or a mosquito, it just sent shivers through my entire body. And I couldn't help from itching. And when you add dust on top of allergies, on top of bloody skin, it's just it's a recipe for disaster. So after my 1 month there, finally learning that the water that I was bathing in and swimming in and drinking in was affecting my body, at least from what I understood after researching the coliform bacteria, I noticed that my skin was starting to calm down. And after I left Malaysia the first time, I flew to Bali to volunteer for the Readers and Writers Festival. And I was staying in a small homestay. I don't know if you've ever stayed out there. You actually stay on people's property, which is really cool. They kind of welcome you into their little area, and they have their own temples, and then they have houses that they let you stay in. And I was shopping for fruits and vegetables and things, and I purchased a papaya. And because I didn't have a kitchen, I brought it upstairs to my shower, and I was washing my papaya, and the water's washing down along my feet. And about 5 minutes later, I noticed that my histamines on my ankles were going crazy. Now, they were still raw and agitated from Malaysia. So I wasn't entirely surprised, but the inflammation just amplified almost instantaneously. And I cut the papaya with my little pocket knife, and I was eating it with my travel spoon as tears rolled down my face because I had to eat it after going through that. I didn't know what was happening to my body, but I knew that something had happened. And as I'm eating my papaya, I'm Googling on my computer, papaya allergies and reactions. And it turns out that if you're prone to hypersensitivity, which I am, which is also exacerbated by the amoxicillin, which I started taking when I was younger, that I think you're only supposed to be on for a week or so. And I know I was on it for a long time. So my body was reacting to the oils in the papaya skin. So I was encountering all these strange things that I had never experienced in my, little world in Illinois, in Belvedere, Illinois. And so every step of my travels, I was learning. And I was extremely stubborn, so I wasn't taking a cab. I had my 20-pound pack, and a cab out there is a guy on a scooter. So with my 20-pound pack, it was very scary getting on the back of a scooter because you're just like a wobbly mass on the back of the scooter. So I was walking everywhere, and my ankles were raw, and so my sandals were rubbing on my ankles. It was a mess, but I was just too stubborn and frankly didn't have a whole lot of money, traveling and working. So after I left Bali, I went back to Malaysia for a short while and found a beautiful island called Langkawi just off the western coast of Malaysia. And I had reserved a spot at a resort that was built in the 70s, and it was out in the middle of nowhere, far away from tourists. And I was able to start meditating regularly. And I had been meditating and working out while I was in Malaysia, but because of the itch, it's really hard to find that peace. And I noticed when I got to Langkawi and I had my little scooter and I was riding around, and there are waterfalls everywhere. one of the waterfalls, you have to hike up. I think it was about an hour and a half hike. And you get to the top, and they say that this is the waterfall where the fairies visited and they decided never to leave because it was just so gorgeous. And I felt the release with the bioenergy of the water. I felt my body just calming and cleansing. And so I made it my mission to visit all the waterfalls on Langkawi Island. And then I would take my scooter back to my resort. I'd stop at a little Penang buffet on the way, and I would get, fresh rices and curries, grilled squid, things like that. And I noticed that my skin was really starting to calm down. And it wasn't until I made my way over to Argentina and finally met with a dermatologist. Healthcare out there is pretty inexpensive. A lot of it's actually free. So I met with a dermatologist out there, and he prescribed a steroid cream. And I was well aware of, the problems with the steroid cream. But because my skin was still so agitated, um, I jumped in. I said, I'll try it. I'll try it until, the itch subsides. And it did. And he reminded me to assess my textile interactions. So I stopped wearing the sandals that were rubbing on my ankles where I was experiencing this extreme irritation. And, looked into the sheets that I was using, and I started eating some collagen enhancing foods. I had more control over my diet there because I had a kitchen. So I wasn't, trying to dissect the recipes that I was ordering at these restaurants. And my skin started to heal. Back on American soil, I was still using the cream that was diagnosed to me, or was prescribed to me in Argentina. So I had stopped using the steroid cream, but he had also prescribed a paraben-free cream from France. And it also had a lot of questionable ingredients, even though it had some really good ones. It also had some that I couldn't pronounce, and I always know that that's kind of tricky. So I started researching all of the ingredients, and I wanted to know why they were in there, what they did, and what their powers were. And so I went through the list of all the ingredients, and there were a lot of them. And then I figured out why they were in there, whether they were emulsifiers or they were hydrating ingredients, calming ingredients. And then I found natural solutions for each of them. So a natural alternative that had the same powers. And then I started creating my own recipes. So I started making my own lotions and creams. I was meditating regularly. I started teaching, and I was just full of light. I felt my entire body was calm and I was happy. And it was then that I noticed that I wasn't itching. I hadn't even noticed that I had completely stopped itching. And so that's when I decided to create a framework based on everything that I went through. So I realized that if I assess what I call my mess, mindfulness, environment, symptoms, and solutions. So I create mindfulness around my situation. I assess my environment, whether it be stress that's bothering me, or dust, or mold, weather. And then I figured out which symptoms were special to me, what was really happening to my body, whether it was redness, itching, inflammation. And then I figured out which solutions fit me perfectly. And so I developed a framework that people can use to just cleanse their world and find that peace. Because for me, it was overwhelming, the pain that I experienced, and then to realize that all I had to do was figure out what was going on in my world, and I found peace and comfort. So
So, mess, mindfulness, environment.
symptoms and solutions.
Okay, symptoms and solutions. I definitely want to get into that and have you teach us further the strategy that helped you to discover exactly what the root cause of your eczema was. Um, I love that you started to see. I love that you started to make connections, like with the papaya as you were washing it, and the oils, uh, were. from the papaya. You didn't realize at the time, but they were washing down onto your ankles, and then you
Mhm.
saw yourself react. A lot of people go through life, all of a sudden they have a symptom and they don't trace back and figure out what it was. Or we try to, but there's too many factors. Like, I was having a digestive issue a while ago, earlier this year, and I'm like frustrated because I'm like, I eat so healthy and
Mhm.
I eat I started eating fermented foods and drinking
Mhm.
my homemade water kefir, and that's when things started going south. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm doing healthy things. Why is this not working?
Yeah.
And so my naturopath couldn't even figure it. I couldn't figure it out. And it was every time I drank water kefir, I had a run to the bathroom moment.
Mm.
And I'm like, is my gut out of whack that I can't even take probiotics?
Mhm.
And my naturopath's like, yeah, maybe try sipping it, but she thought it was crazy too. So she's like, you know what? Let's do some allergy testing. And I was kind of already ready to jump back in and do some allergy testing. Um, and sure enough, I am allergic to bananas, which I was eating, a few times a week and not realizing that that was causing like 3 days of running to the bathroom from
Oh
one
my
banana.
gosh.
And also I was allergic to cane sugar, anything from the sugarcane plant, which never,
Mhm.
this is a sugar-free household. We use stevia, but of course to make water kefir you need a sugar, right? And
Oh
you
yeah.
can't use honey because that interferes with the bacteria. And so I switched my sugar from cane to non-GMO beet sugar, and
Hmm.
started making my water kefir again, and the problem went away. And I thought, man, I wouldn't have figured out that it was the cane sugar, because who in the right mind
Yeah.
would think they're allergic to that? So sometimes it takes like doing tests, but the like you say, the mindfulness being your first step. I mean, how many people wouldn't have caught that it was the papaya and just been super frustrated, or have bought into the belief system that the MDs had taught them from childhood, that this is just an autoimmune condition. This is your body. You're going to have it for the rest of your life. Suck it up,
Mhm.
and suck it up or suffer, and take some medication and take a daily, pill. And you said, no, I'm going to figure this out. The body doesn't just need a medication every day. And I love that you became so diligent, and I think you have a real knack for like the detective work. And so
Mhm.
you've got mess, mindfulness, environment, symptoms, and solutions. Let's break it down. How can we become so mindful that we could start to see the triggers?
Yeah. Well, I like to use the phrase fight or plight. So either fight to find solutions or plight and struggle with struggle with the pain and the nonsense throughout your life. So within the mindfulness, I've created what I like to call the mindfulness ABCs. So creating awareness. So being aware that you do have this issue you're dealing with. You haven't quite discovered how you're going to heal yourself yet, but being aware that you can heal, that you do
Mm-hmm.
have the power to heal. Because, like you said, the doctors were telling me that I was never going to heal and that there was no solution. And changing that mindset is so powerful. And, just thinking, what epigenetics, like telling your body that you can heal and beginning to heal. So, creating awareness around the situation and starting to think positively about how you're going to heal this solution or heal this symptom that you have. And then creating the belief, once again, that you can heal and that you're powerful enough to figure this out on your own, that you don't necessarily have to go to a doctor who might offer you a false solution. So, believing in your own power. And then care is the C. So, care for me involves meditation. It also involves going out in nature and absorbing that bioenergy. Working out is also part of the care. So, starting to care for your body and healing it from the inside and from that standpoint. And then we move into environment, where I say you need to assess your set. So, your sustenance, your ecosystem, your textiles, and your topicals and treatments. So you would look at what you're eating and what you're taking in your body. So like what you were saying with the cane sugar, what is bothering me? So you start to use a food journal, like I know you use for your blood sugar testing, because food journals are so powerful, and knowing what's going in your body is really the only way to pinpoint things like this. It's also a lot easier when you're eating at home. I know it's really hard for people to keep a food journal if they're eating out a lot, because you never really know
Mhm.
what's going in your food.
Mhm. Yeah, I love eating out, but I have to keep reminding myself that restaurants are there to make a profit, and they're going to buy the cheapest food. Unless
Hmm.
you go to there's a handful of restaurants in and around Seattle, and they're more expensive, but they're local, organic,
Yep.
sustainable. Like they're the cool, modern day hippie
Yeah.
restaurants, and you can walk out of there feeling good because that their ingredients are really pure. But like there's this one restaurant in Redmond, Washington that is 100% gluten free and cow dairy free.
Oh.
And yes, I know I can eat anything at this
Yeah.
restaurant. I could just throw a dart at the menu and eat it and know that I will survive.
Oh, that's so
Um
exciting.
and the chef shops at Whole Foods when they run out, like when he runs out. So
Mm.
they the staff at our local Whole Foods has told me that I've seen him running to the store because he ran out of potatoes, and they're like, yes,
Mm.
he actually buys the organic ones. Like because he
Oh,
touts
yeah.
himself as being 100% organic restaurant. And so it's like these little mom and pop restaurants that you can trust if you get to know them. But for the most part, restaurants will look to use the cheapest ingredients,
Hmm.
not from scratch. They'll definitely have MSG and GMO, and it's going to be the cheapest cuts of meat, and
Yep.
there's all kinds of hidden ingredients. Just like soup, I could not believe that they put they'll actually add a lot of soups. They'll add sugar, they'll add, obviously preservatives because it's canned, but
Yeah.
they'll add MSG, they'll add wheat flour. Whereas
Mm.
if you're cooking at home, make a big batch of soup and then freeze it if you want to have soup, throughout the year, but
Yeah.
you don't want to make it throughout the year. But there's these little changes, that little switches that we have to make when we realize that we've got to get to the root cause. So I absolutely agree that if you are struggling with an autoimmune condition and you need to clean up your diet, for a time being, you've got to completely control everything that goes in your mouth. I can't. There's a time that I couldn't even eat at my relatives' houses when they were cooking because I could not trust that they wouldn't get out the Worcestershire sauce or something, or
Yep.
they would use the soy sauce, or they would, something that I know that my body was reacting to, because I can't tell you how many times I've walked away from a seemingly healthy meal at a friend's house with a food reaction.
Yep.
And they love me and I love them, but I've had to figure out how to how to work around it, right? And so I agree with you that I think the thing to remember, because I kind of got depressed about this, like I could never eat out again.
Yeah.
I just ignorance is bliss. Put me back in the matrix. I don't want to. I don't want to live this way. Remember that time the guy in the Matrix wanted just put me back in. I want to, like,
Oh, yeah.
he just wanted to eat that steak. I just want to eat that steak in the Matrix and forget this all existed. Um, but there will come a time in your healing when you can start eating at restaurants again. When you get your body totally back into balance, there you can slowly
Yes.
integrate back into society, right? But
Right.
there's this time of healing, this acute time of healing. And so I love that you mention one of the strategies is to 100% control your diet, because that's really how you're going to figure out what's going on, but also how you can gain the most access to healing foods, right? Because if you're controlling your diet, then you can go, okay, I'm getting the turmeric in here, and I'm getting the healthy fats, and I'm getting more vegetables, and because you control it.
Definitely. Yeah. And even triggers appear in the strangest places, like you were saying when you're eating at your friend's house. Seasoning packets contain flour a lot of time,
Mm.
or wheat gluten, and chemicals can trigger the strangest reactions. So, picking organic foods, like you said, and collagen based foods, anti inflammatory foods, makes such a difference to your
Can you?
body.
I'd love you to teach us what are some collagen enhancing or collagen producing foods And also then what are some anti-inflammatory foods? So let's start with the collagen enhancing foods.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite collagen enhancing foods is bone broth. So, it just because it's amazing and warming, and especially because it's fall now, going into winter, it's a really great thing to have. And I like to make it myself, but there are also a lot of good organic and non-GMO grass-fed options out there now. Avocado, sweet potatoes, oranges, leafy greens like spinach, white tea, and cabbage is one of my favorites. I'll put it in everything. I'll put it in soups. I'll eat it raw with tacos. And anti-inflammatory foods. There's turmeric is one of my favorites. It's another thing that you can sneak into anything. Beets, ginger, berries, dark chocolate's a good one. Garlic, salmon. Salmon is also a great collagen producing food. Rosemary is a great seasoning for inflammation. And then there's another group of foods that are antibacterial foods. A lot of the reactions that you have within your skin, whether it's acne or eczema, are reacting because your pH is off, because you've got a bacterial issue in your gut. So I like to use garlic, honey, once again, cabbage, turmeric, fermented foods like you were talking about earlier, ginger, and coconut oil are some great options.
Cool. Now, what should we avoid? Like just across the board, what are some foods that would either kick up the histamine response, kick up the inflammation response, and or cause the leaky gut, which sends our immune system into like haywire craziness.
Yeah, that's a great question. Processed foods. It's like ding ding ding, like processed foods is like the biggest thing because once again, you don't know what's going on in those factories. You don't know what's going in them, and they're full of chemicals that your body doesn't know what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because your skin is your biggest organ, and because you release toxins through your skin, if you're feeding yourself all these toxins, it's no wonder that they're leaching out and causing reactions on your dermis.
In college, I had a friend who worked at, um, it's a Canadian hot dog company, Maple Leaf. I don't know if they also have hot dogs down here, but they're in Canada. And
Mhm.
she said that she was this like sort of safety inspector for she'd walk around and like check all
Mm.
the fridges and the freezers and make sure that they are like in the healthy ranges. And she said never ever ever eat Maple Leaf hot dogs because their fridge is constantly like they just have a problem with their fridge and they won't fix it. It's always warm.
Uh,
And yeah, exactly, right? And I mean nothing to do with the ingredients in hot dogs, but it's like we trust, like with processed meats, like we trust
mhm.
that they from start to finish, right? From the animal to the table. I mean, and think about it. This freaked me out when I thought, how many hands? Like you watch these, remember those old TV shows like How Is It Made?
Right.
And I used to love that as a kid, and you can probably YouTube it now, but how many hands touch that or in some way, what if
Mhm.
that person had a bad day, right? And because
Yeah.
computers don't tend to make problem or tend to make mistakes, but humans make mistakes.
Mhm.
And how many potential mistakes could have happened if it's really processed, right? Like think about how many hands
Definitely.
have to touch your food if it's processed. Another thing is a good friend of mine, her mom used to work for one of the largest chicken companies. So like do you think Tyson, right? Like what like
Mhm.
that kind of size. And I just won't mention their name. Might have been Tyson. And her job was the same as my other friend in college, that she went around and she inspected the safety, but she was also looking for like rat feces
Oh,
and
yeah.
like all the craziness that or like people not washing their hands or like wearing gloves or like food falling on the floor and then being put back onto
Mhm.
the whatever, right, on back onto the conveyor belt. And she did her job so well that they fired her because she did it so well. She said constantly on a weekly basis she goes, don't eat that food, don't eat chicken from
Oh
these
my
big
gosh.
companies. She goes, they're constantly, Weekly she found feces in the chicken. Weekly she found, you know, like all these violations
Mm.
weekly. And she just, you know, every time she reported it, they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. And so what you're supposed to do, what she's supposed to do is hit the like big red stop button where the entire conveyor belt shuts down and they have
Mhm.
to clean the whole place. Well, that costs them so much money, but legally that's what she's supposed to do.
Right.
And so she was told basically don't do that, even though that's what she's supposed to do. And because it costs them money, they're like, yeah, 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 whatever. You didn't see that rat poop. Like keep moving along. And so she
Wow.
just hit the button so many times because she caught so much stuff that they fired her, and she'd been working there for years. So it's like, yes, we can't trust chemicals that the body doesn't respond, like the body doesn't recognize, like MSG and all this stuff that's really bad for you. But just think about the food safety. We're
Yeah.
trusting hundreds of people, and then these companies themselves want to make a profit. So we don't know what's hidden in it. You know, ice cream, I've talked about this before on the show, but ice cream has, and it doesn't have to be listed in the ingredients. I'm gonna ruin ice cream for you. I'm sorry. But in ice cream, even, you know, the coconut ice cream, which, you know, I'm dairy free, so I can have coconut ice cream. In
Mhm.
all ice cream, they put food grade antifreeze. Think about, okay, if you made your own homemade ice cream and you put it in the freezer, it'd be rock solid. How come ice cream
Right.
is always, how come you can take a scooper and scoop ice cream and it's just soft all the time? It's because they use food grade antifreeze and they don't have to say it in the label. So there's in all your foods and all your processed foods, there are components that they do not have to put on the label because what it's called like the standard way of processing. It's industry standard. So
Mm.
if some, like just like chicken McNuggets, right? They don't have to tell you they use bleach and they used all these other chemicals to melt the meat off the bones and to make the pink sludge or whatever that they use
Mm.
to make the. I mean, it's really gross, but
Yeah.
they don't have to tell you. They don't have to declare the chemicals that they use if it's industry standard, because no one in their right mind would be eating ice cream if they knew they were eating food grade antifreeze. um but I've got a great recipe for homemade ice cream, by the way, so if anyone wants it, let me know.
Mm. Definitely.
I feel like we have to become Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and we have to like get prepared and and educate ourselves, and then figure out how to be really handy and do it from scratch. You know, it's like we're the Girl Scouts that have been thrown into the woods with a little pocket knife and told like find your way home, right? And that's like we're being thrown into the wilderness when it comes to our health, and now we have to like figure it out on our own. So start from scratch, and that's where like our food start from scratch. So I love that you teach that mindfulness, and then looking into your environment, and then making sure that you can journal as you're eating your food so you can figure it out. Because the doctors are wrong. You can cure your eczema, right?
Mhm.
Denise, you cured your eczema, didn't you?
Yes. I mean, I still, I still have reactions. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I'm not I can't remember the last time I itched until I bled, until my skin was raw.
Your reactions though, is it your body's way of telling you you're going down the wrong path? Is it like the whisper like, "Hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't use that detergent," or "Hey,"
Yep.
like is it your body's way of gently whispering to you so that you don't have to have the giant cosmic 2 by 4 hit you because you went down a path too far?
Yeah, definitely. It's, oh, I decided to eat that fried chicken because that's what my family was eating. And I knew I shouldn't have done it. Then I came home and I need to drink like a whole kettle full of chamomile tea because I can feel my entire body, just starting to tingle just enough to where, it could trigger an itch. And so just
Oh.
being aware of those little incidents, and food is one of the easiest things. Textiles is one of the hardest things to
Why is that?
pinpoint.
Why is that?
Um, I think because you encounter them in so many different situations. Even like a car seat or a plane seat or something you could
Hmm.
react to. Also, if you're staying in a hotel, you don't know what kind of laundry detergent they're using. You don't know the processes used for the textiles. A lot of the dyes and the chemicals that they use, especially if they're dyeing a dark fabric like a black or a dark purple or a dark blue, can be extremely harmful to people with hypersensitive skin. And the chemicals don't fade when you wash it. The color might fade, but the chemicals are still in there, holding strong. They're doing their job. So textiles for me is it's a really tricky one.
That's interesting. Now you wrote a book, which we definitely want to talk about, where you teach everything, and I'm really excited about that. Of course, the link to your book's going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, thehealyourselfbook.com. I think that's easy enough to remember.
Yeah, right.
So thank you for putting everything together in your book, so that we can all learn from it. Um, I love that you took your years of experience and experimenting. Like, you figured out that if your body starts tingling because you ate the wrong food, to sip on chamomile tea.
Mhm.
That's cool. I would have never thought chamomile tea would bring down the histamine response. It's really neat. And I'm excited to learn more about the other tips and tricks that you have up your sleeve. You also have an MBA in environmental sustainability. How has that played a role in your healing?
It's created an awareness, I guess. Well, and it actually began, my bachelor's is in fashion design. So that's when I started learning about the textiles. And when I went back to school for my MBA, I decided that I was really curious about the processes that textiles are going through. And so that was one of the things that I also explored while I was traveling. I found a small batik manufacturer on another small island just off the eastern coast of Malaysia, and I walked up to this building. It was an old barn, and I had just taken a ferry to an island, and everyone just kind of dispersed. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just walk around. And I found an old barn that said batik on the side of it. And I walked in because it was open, and there were cats walking around everywhere, and there were tubs of dye with batik fabrics just hanging over it. And if you're not familiar with batik, it's just painting on fabric with wax and then dyeing the fabric. And then when you wash the fabric and remove the wax, you're left with that resist. So you're left with whatever color was underneath the wax. So I'm walking through this factory, and I walk into the back, and there are two men working there. And I call it a factory, but it was really just a barn. And one of them had gloves on, the other one did not. And the one who did not have gloves on had a mask on. So both of them are partially protected, but the fumes were just floating into the air, and they were reaching into these toxins and chemicals. And as I walked around the back of the building, they were really sweet. They nodded at me and allowed me to walk around and take pictures. I noticed that the runoff from the batik that they were making was going right into the ocean.
Mm.
Yeah, directly into the ocean. So with my MBA, I focused on, and my master's thesis was actually focused on the waste created by the retail apparel industry.
Oh, wow.
So there are a lot of reporting regulations. There's varying. There's like the GRI. There's the Higg Index. There are various different reporting regulations, but they don't really require you to report everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kind of like the food industry.
right, exactly. Yeah, you get to pick, there's this whole list of things. I think there are like 37 within the GRI, and then you get to pick which 17 you want to report on within your company. So you can say, well, I have a LEED certified warehouse, let's put that on the report. Or we have green vehicles for logistics, let's put in that on the report. So
Mm.
so yeah, with my MBA, I started to do more research about what was in the fabrics that were bothering that might be bothering someone with eczema, that's damaging the world, but also damaging people on a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just started applying. I was just compiling all this information since I've been struggling with eczema my entire life. I cannot count the amount of hours I've spent on research, just researching chemicals and fabrics. And so now, I just like with your meals, the cleaner the better. So real food, clean environments, dust-free, smoke-free, mold-free, fabrics, unbleached. If you're going to get something that's dyed, look for something that's plant or vegetable dyed.
Mm.
Look for fabrics like bamboo or flax, linen, or hemp. that are sustainable, so they're good for the environment, but they're also non-reactive for skin because synthetic fibers can be extremely reactive, and they're basically chemical fibers that you're
Hmm.
wearing on your body.
I love bamboo. We use bamboo sheets, and I'll never go back. Well,
Yeah,
I'm.
those are great.
Oh man, it's they. What's really neat about bamboo is also they wick. Is that the
Mhm.
word? So they breathe,
Yep.
and there's something about them that is antimicrobial,
Yes,
which
definitely.
I thought was cool. And then something about not a great environment for the little tiny insects that live
For
on our
mites and
body. For
things.
the Yeah,
Yep.
dust mites, exactly. Well, people with allergies a lot of times would have a allergic reaction to the waste left behind from dust mites, and so they want to switch to the bamboo sheets.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And
and
those are natural fibers that in nature resist all these animals and mites and
mm,
things because they have this strong, they've got that little bit of waxy, natural, the fibrous, because like when you feel like flax or bamboo, a lot of times it's heavier. I know the bamboo sheets are really, really soft. They do a finer thread count with that, but they are coated just slightly in a little bit of natural wax from the plants.
and that deters the dust mites.
Yeah, and the bacteria, that's why, you don't have the mold growth. So like if you've got, like for instance, I've got a bamboo, or no, it might be hemp. I've got a hemp um, sleeve that I put over the soap that I use for scrubbing
Uh-huh.
for in the shower. And it smells fresh and clean all the time because, it's got this great fiber, and then I use my natural soaps and I just hang it to dry and
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I love the bamboo towels. I got them as well
Mhm.
because they don't do mold. You could just keep it. You could keep a bamboo towel wet in your gym bag. I mean, the gym bag would end up getting moldy, but the towel
Right.
won't.
Right.
You have to get like a hemp towel or hemp gym bag to go with your bamboo towel.
It's
Uh,
so great.
that's really neat. Well, what about that dilemma around cars and the fabrics we can't avoid? Is it a matter of just taking as much as we can control out of our environment and boosting our body's internal health so that it can handle the stressors that come our way, like sitting in a airplane chair with synthetic off-gassing gross whatever
Mhm.
chemicals, or a taxi cab, which might have those dyes and synthetic fibers that we be sitting in.
Yeah, or they're
uh
the air fresheners that they
Oh my
use too.
gosh, that's right, right. Or if we travel to different countries, there's lots of cigarette smoke and other allergens that,
Mhm.
like you said, there's certain countries that don't have regulations, so there's just tons of chemicals in the air, and in the water, or bacteria in the water. So we got to get to the point where this body is so strong that, like you just had some fried chicken. I know people who are so sick with eczema, they eat fried chicken, they would be like in the hospital practically. And
Right.
you had just a little bit of an itch because your body's so strong that it just got to whisper to you instead of scream at you. So, how can we help the listeners build their body so strong that their eczema becomes nothing but a whisper?
Yeah, that's great. I love how you phrase that. Definitely streamlining your world. And like you were talking about with the food, you can't do it for just a short period of time. You've really got to track your food and your mess, your mindfulness, your environment, your symptoms, and your solutions. So tracking your food, what you're reacting to, where you're reacting to it, what the reaction feels like.
When you say
So
where, you mean on the body. So make a note of the location on your body where it's happening, because that's a clue
yeah,
too.
yeah, also where it's happening on your body and where you were when it happened, who you were with, what you were feeling. Were you with a stepbrother who makes you angry or stressed out and you had started to have a reaction? Where was it on your body? So, really pinpointing everything because it can be stress related. It's very likely that some of these reactions, especially for me, I know when I would get stressed if I had a big project or something. I remember it happening a lot when I was younger in high school. I would itch and I wouldn't even notice I was doing it. I'd be working on something and I'd be itching. And so tracking everything, and that's what I say in the book, like, don't just write down that my arm was red. Where were you? Who were you with? What were you doing? What were you feeling?
Mhm.
And then you do really begin to become aware of what it is that's bothering you. And when you do that, when you encounter something like the fried chicken, for instance, um, that awareness almost helps the itch subside because there's power in it. And not only is there power in you realizing that, oh, I know what happened, like I know what I did. After you've cleansed your world for so many months, your body is, it's almost like your body is aware without you even thinking, like
Mm.
subconsciously. Your skin gets stronger after it's healed for a few months. Because I know, at least for me, when I was traveling, I could just tickle my skin and it would bleed.
Mm.
Um, and there's something to that, the physicality of allowing your skin to heal. Um, and I know I like to keep chamomile tea bags on me. That's one of my go-tos because it's a very strong anti-inflammatory. So if you are traveling, if you're on an airplane and you notice yourself starting to react, maybe pull your sweater up and cover the seat, or make sure your ankles aren't rubbing on anything, or make sure your socks are on and they're not touching the floor. And then maybe have some chamomile tea and just start to create that awareness that you are powerful and that you can heal yourself and that your body is healing.
Mhm. I gotta warn you though, don't ever use water in an airplane.
Oh,
Don't use the tap water on an airplane. Don't wash your hands with water on an airplane. Do not drink hot water or cold water from an airplane unless you got it just straight from a bottle. Because these airplanes, it's now proven that these airplanes have all kinds of bacteria in it because they go to all kinds of different countries and they
yeah.
fill up their water tanks there, and these airplanes don't like clean their water tanks. They just take municipal water from Bangladesh and then they come to New York City
Oh,
and then they go to, what, Thailand, and then they go to Argentina, wherever the planes are going, or Mexico. I mean, like if you go to Mexico and start drinking the water, are you gonna have a reaction or not? Because your body's just not used to the bacteria in that water. Um,
right.
and so yeah, they found that there's all kinds of different bacteria from different countries in the water, even the hot water, and because there's can be toxins left behind from bacteria. And so, as sad as that is, you're gonna have to figure out how to get your chamomile tea before you get on board.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know what I do? I bring my travel cup with me and my own tea bags, and then I just go to like a Starbucks or whatever they have and ask them for hot
Yes.
water.
Yes, exactly. That's what you do after you've clear customs. Then you can
Right.
brew your tea before you get on the
Yeah,
plane. V-
totally. That's great though. I didn't know that about the planes. That
Yeah,
changes things
I'm
for
just
sure.
like I'm just like ruining everyone's day. You can't enjoy your airplane. You can't enjoy ice cream.
Yeah.
That's
No,
funny.
knowledge is bliss. Knowledge is bliss. Once we learn what it is.
Yeah, I just saw my chiropractor this morning, and we were talking about different recipes. He's like, I'm gonna make this recipe, and it's this one where you put the meat in the bag and then in with juice and then you cook it really
Okay.
slowly. And I'm like, yeah, but what about the plastic? And he's like, it's
Yeah.
BPA free plastic. And my husband and I both looked at him like, are you crazy? BPA free plastic? Like, all it's plastic. I don't care if it's BPA free. You're cooking your food in plastic. And
Yeah.
he looked at me and he goes, "You just ruined my dinner." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right."
He needs to get an old sheep's bladder like they used to use.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I'm gonna email him when we get off Skype and tell him I'm giving him a sheep's bladder for Christmas. So awesome. Well, so let's first of all, let's talk about your book. Who should buy your book? And is it just people with skin problems, or can anyone with autoimmune condition benefit from your book? Let's talk about your book.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is called Heal Yourself, the Guide to Healing Your Skin Naturally. But I've been hearing from my readers, and a lot of them don't have skin difficulties. And they're finding out that the mindfulness and that intuitiveness and the learning about their environment and their textiles, for example, is benefiting their lives, even though they don't have skin issues. So it's for anybody who is looking to cleanse their world or become aware
Mm.
of what they're encountering.
Cool. Now, it feels more like, just in talking to you, that your book is less of a book and more of a workbook, because you're kind of a very action oriented person. And I feel like your book is just filled with actionable steps that people can take. Is it more like a workbook that people can really hit the ground running with it?
It is. I was told by another author that it's in, oh, what's the word I'm thinking of? Essay format. She said, you kind of walk through and you break down everything and you explain everything as if it were an essay. And she said, I love it, because it really explains everything perfectly, in a way that you can kind of absorb it. And also within the book, I've got some internal links so that you can download PDFs that go along with the book. So you can download a food journal, you can download your symptom tracker. I've got some lists of fibers for healing. So you can download all these different things and kind of work your way through the book.
Very cool. And if anyone has a friend who needs to heal their skin, go to the
Mhm.
healyourselfbook.com, get them the book, because it's so cool. And now people with eczema, have they also reported to you after reading the book, that they have had success?
Yes. And one of the stories that I really liked came from a man, because I feel like a lot of my readers that I've heard from are female. And this is a man who, he's, the guy's guy, he's like an engineer, and he was using mindfulness within his sports. He shoots guns, and I guess that's a that's a sport. So he was using mindfulness within that venue, but hadn't brought it into his life when it comes to his skin, because he was having issues with eczema. And after reading the book, he decided to use that mindfulness that he had learned previously and bring it into his life, because he was only using it before he had a match or something like that. And he told me he actually, after reading the book, he met with a mental coach in Amelia Island, Florida. And so he's working on bringing mindfulness into his world. And he said that he's definitely seen some changes in his eczema.
That's so cool. That's very cool. Do you have any other stories of success? Now, I know you also work with people, like as a kind of a skin health coach. So if someone is like at the end of their rope and they want your help as their detective to work through this, I know that you also will work with someone, and you're great at helping them to decipher what's going on and get to the root cause of the triggers. Can you share some stories of success from people who've read your book, who've taken advice from you, and how that has impacted their life?
Yeah. I have one story that comes to mind, was a woman who devotes her entire life to her family and wasn't finding time to heal herself. And I gave her some essential oils. I gave her, I think one was for stress. It was like a roll on, a mixture that I made for stress, and then one for sleep. And she started using them and fell in love. And she actually started looking into essential oils herself and found an essential oils lady. And she was able to eliminate some of the medications that she was using for her bipolar disorder.
Wow. So she was able to reduce her bipolar medication, but at the same time be happier. Like she didn't like go into depression,
Right.
right?
Nope. No, she said she used the rollerball a lot. I think she asked me for another one after a couple months. But it was just so amazingly powerful for her that she was able to rid herself of some of those toxins that she was putting in her body.
And was she happier? Was she like, what happened in her life? Like, obviously, being able to get off some medications is wonderful,
Mhm.
but what was the impact on her overall life when her health cleared up?
Right. Yeah, she felt that lightness that you feel when you're happy. She said she loved using the essential oils because they made her smile, they made her happy, and even her son, she said her and her son were rubbing it on their temples, and they were just smiling, and and to to go from thinking that you can only be happy taking medication to using a little bit of essential oil, mixed in a carrier oil, and still feeling that happiness, is so powerful. So, for your listeners, I am offering a special. Normally, the 1 hour individual healing session is $97, and I'm offering it for your listeners only for $59.99 or $60. And if they go to ablesmallbatch.com, they can click on the individual healing session and then use code LearnTrueHealth to apply the discount.
And if it doesn't work, you can email Denise and tell her,
Definitely.
say,
Yeah, there's a
hey,
contact link in there.
say, hey, Denise, I want that discount because I found out about you on Learn True Health. I love that you made it so affordable that anyone who's suffering with these skin conditions can work with you. If they can't dial it all in from your book and from your guidance here today, then they can at a really affordable rate work with you. And so I'm so thankful that you're providing the service, because I've had a lot of friends with skin conditions, and I know that it's like being a prisoner of your own body.
Right.
And you can't see beyond the problem, right? And it affects people's social life, it affects their career, it affects their travel, it affects their sleep. I mean, everything. And their self-confidence, their
Mhm.
self-worth, there's a lot to overcome there, which is a blessing in disguise, I think, because look at how far you've come and how much you've grown because life gave you this challenge. I think, at the end of the
That's
day,
true.
once you've got on the other side of a health problem, we end up becoming thankful for it. Just kind of like the abusive or the bad relationships we've had in our past, we can be really thankful for them when we get on the other side of it and heal from it and realize that it's what allowed us to learn and become stronger. So I can be thankful for all the negative experiences in my past, just like I can be thankful for the health um, hiccups along the way. So we can, instead
Definitely.
of being a victim of eczema, we can be empowered and look for the lessons and ask ourselves what's good about this, because it can make us stronger. And I love that you want to hold people's hand and guide them there and help them to become stronger as a result.
Definitely. Yes. And I love them throughout the sessions or anything. Even if you're not doing one of the sessions, reach out to me. Send me a message through the contact. Hey, I need help with this. I'd love to help. So,
Wonderful. Now you have some recipes in your book. Let's talk about them. I know you got ones that involve essential oils. Tell us about some recipes that we would find in your book, and give us the goods.
yeah. So while I was traveling through Indonesia, I fell in love with jamu, which is a tonic that they use for all kinds of different things. So they have a jamu lady who travels through all these villages in Indonesia, all 17,000 islands of Indonesia. They all have these different forms of jamu. Some are for the skin, some of them are for the liver, the heart. And she just travels around and she fills up your cup or your bottle with jamu. And so I was trying all these different jamus at the different restaurants that they had. And it almost tastes like a warm, like a, I guess it doesn't have to be warm because some of them are chilled, but like a spicy carrot juice
Mm-hmm.
almost. But it's got ginger and turmeric and honey. So it's anti-inflammatory and antibacterial. So it's incredibly healing if you've got skin disorders, but it's also great if you are traveling and you're encountering maybe some pathogens or something like that because of the antibacterial properties. And it also cools your body from the inside because, when you're in that tropical environment, you need something that's kind of spicy to cool yourself down. So I've got a really yummy jamu recipe in there in the back.
Well, great. So tell us, how do you spell Jamu, first of all?
Jamu.
Like many people I've met with who have healed their eczema, you started your own skincare line. Is that correct?
I did.
Tell us a bit about that. I'd love to know some recipes, some ingredients. Uh, why would someone want to use your skincare products, especially if they have eczema?
Yeah. So I created Able Small Batch Organics based on the fact that if you pull all the chemicals out of your world, and this involves a lot of what you're putting on your skin, that you can heal. So that's where the able comes in, that you are able to heal. And so all of my ingredients are anti inflammatory, anti reactive, Um, so I've got a lot of natural butters. I've got cocoa butter, mango butter, shea butter, cocoa butter. I use sunflower seed oil a lot. I try to avoid some of the nut oils that create a lot of allergies for people. I use avocado oil, um, lavender. One of the most popular gifts is the calming, I call it a purification rub, and it's beeswax, soy wax, sunflower seed oil, lavender, and sandalwood. So I tell people it's great for road rage. Keep it in your purse and rub it on your temples. And I like to inhale the jar and just kind of give myself that little bit of aromatherapy. Um, I used ylang ylang in another one of the solid oils, and that's great because it's got sebum balancing qualities. And so when your sebum is off, if you've got increased levels of sebum, you'll have acne and situations like that, increased oil, greasy hair, things like that. And if you have low sebum development, then you're going to experience things like eczema and psoriasis. And so there are some things like flaxseed oil, pumpkin seeds, tofu, things like that that can regulate your sebum. But also with the ylang ylang, applying that topically, if you've got a situation where you are reacting, it can kind of start to regulate that for you.
Oh, so cool. I love it. We don't need drugs.
Right.
We need plants.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. Very cool. Well, this has been such a pleasure having you here and sharing your story, going from being, feeling as though you had to live in a bubble practically your whole life because you're
Mhm.
reacting to everything, to breaking out and just going for it and traveling, backpacking, and then figuring out that dialing in the things that your body is reacting to and realizing that you can live this wonderful full life. You just need to figure out what your body's reacting to and how to heal on the inside, um, which is so cool that you did that, and then you got to the point where you learned so much about your own healing that you could turn around and teach others. You and I have spoken off air. You are a wealth of knowledge. I think that anyone who can't figure out on their own how to dial in their eczema should absolutely work with you as a coach. I know that you have a special you'd like to give our listeners, which I think is so super generous of you. So could you explain that? So for listeners who, after maybe reading your book or dialing in some things, if they still can't get on top of their eczema or their psoriasis, um, they can work with you as a coach, and you can help them as their detective figure out what's going on. So this is an MD won't do this. An MD will just kind of give you a list, give you some drugs, and give you a list, a general list of things to avoid. But you're going to go in and with a fine tooth comb and really help them dial it in. So please tell us a bit about your individual healing sessions and what that looks like to work with you.
Definitely. So within the individual healing session, I will talk with you on the phone, or if you're local, I love to meet with you in person, or via Skype, Facebook, or FaceTime, whatever you prefer. Because it's a really personal interaction. I want to walk you through, or I want you to walk me through your entire world. So within the 1 hour, we'll talk about what you're eating, how you're feeling, the things you encounter throughout your life, what your schedule is like. Is it stressful? Are there certain situations you continue to encounter that are creating reactions for you? So we walk through your world, and I start to take notes about the things that I think might be triggers. And so after we get off the phone, I'll sit down and I'll develop what I call your mess. So I'll assess your mindfulness, your environment, your symptoms, and what I think to be your solutions. And so I'll compile all that information, and then I'll give that back to you. And then what I like them to do is, as they're working through their mess, reach out to me, and let me know, hey, this isn't working for me. And I'll say, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can um, change the way that we're doing this, or change something that you're eating. And so I really like to be there for them as they're working through cleansing themselves.
I love it. It's so cool. Now, in the Learn True Health Facebook group, I posted a few days ago about having you on the show, which is something I've started doing with the Learn to Health Facebook group so that listeners can jump in and ask questions and be part of the interview. We definitely have the biggest response so far. It has been you. We've got a lot of people interested
Uh,
in skin health. Amelia says that her boyfriend suffers from really flaky skin on his face and his head. He also gets red rashes behind his ears and on his chest. What would you suggest? What steps would you suggest that they take, given the location of his symptoms?
yeah, definitely. So I would definitely look into some sebum regulating essential oils and foods. Oil, jojoba oil is great for that. Castor seed oil. Linoleic acid is an ingredient that they'll put in some like soothing shampoos, like a biotin shampoo or something like that. And I would definitely look into my shampoos and what you're putting on your scalp because it sounds like it might be washing down his body,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where he's reacting. I would also look at trying to balance his gut health. Because definitely around your hair follicles, you might have some reactions, and it sounds like that's a lot of the places where he's reacting. So eliminating some of the bacteria in those areas. And you can actually you can do a rinse with lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. You can also try like a baking soda paste and rub that on for 10 to 15 minutes to just kind of balance the pH in those areas. And then I always love to try coconut oil. And if you don't have, I know we had talked about this in the past of ylang ylang, because I like to use that. If you don't have a tendency towards migraines, you can try a little bit of ylang ylang essential oil, and that will kind of balance your sebum regulation because it sounds like he's got overactive um,
Mm,
glands there, sebaceous glands.
got it. Very cool. Well, I'm sure Amelia will be very thrilled for your answer. And now, Catherine wants to know, she has like she doesn't have lupus, but she has these little red bumps on her face that look like the lupus butterfly, and
Hmm.
she can't seem to get rid of it. Oh, so when someone has that like slapped cheek or look, or that like rosacea, those red bumps, what would you suggest they do?
Yeah, that also sounds like it might be a bacterial reaction. It's a huge trigger when it comes to things like rosacea and eczema and reactions like that. So I would definitely introduce some of the antibacterial foods like honey, garlic, cabbage, turmeric, and then maybe start using a toner to balance the pH, like a witch hazel. So something gentle that's not going to like stimulate her skin. But yeah, like a witch hazel with the rose water or something like that. Something gentle because it sounds like it might be slightly painful. She could even use like a diluted apple cider vinegar with some water.
Great. Sandra says dry scalp help would be delightful. She has a longer hairline and she's tried organic shampoos, coconut oil, cutting back on blow drying. She's tried sulfate free products. She's seen a dermatologist, which just gave her a liquid that dried her scalp and made her hair look
Mm.
greasy. It's been a long time that she's had this for about 15 years, so she'd love help with figuring out her dry scalp along the hairline.
Yeah, definitely. Um, One thing to note is even if, because I've reacted to things that are seemingly non-toxic that have amazing ingredients list, but you can still have an allergic reaction. So there can be something within the ingredients list, even though it looks pure and beautiful, that you can be reacting to.
You know, Aveda uses, and you think Aveda, ooh, that's so
Yeah.
organic. They use gluten in some of their
Mm.
products. And I had a reaction. I was getting a free, sometimes they do these free treatments like, oh, I'll rub your scalp
Oh,
with this,
right.
whatever. And I'm like, you can rub my scalp with anything. Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting a free, free little massage. And halfway through, I'm like, wait a second, what's in this? And I started feeling
Mm.
not the pleasurable kind of tingling. And sure enough, some of their products have gluten in it. God knows why. But
Right.
but yeah, so you might think it's a healthy product, but you could be reacting to that. And there might be, we don't even, sometimes there's things we can't even pronounce in these products, or maybe they don't have to, maybe there's a solvent that they don't have to list because it was part of, like the ice cream, it was part
Right.
of the industry standard. And so
Yeah.
that there are always certain chemicals in anything processed that they don't have to list because it's part of the industry standard. Even chemicals leaching from the plastic bottle go into the,
Yeah.
like, plastic bottles. The plastic chemicals will leak into the food or leak into the cosmetics. And I know that just sounds so paranoid of me to say that, but
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 it's
if it's
true.
true, if someone can't dial it in. So what would you suggest she do instead of using shampoos? Is there like an all natural like way that she could get through life without a shampoo to try to clean up her reaction?
I don't have like a recipe for like an all natural shampoo off the bat. I would definitely look at what she's using and see if there are any similarities between products that she's used in the past that she's react to and products she's using now. Maybe she can create like a little. I love to use spreadsheets for things like that. Like, could it be this ingredient? Oh, this ingredient was in all three of them, and I'm reacting to that still.
Okay, I get it. And is there anything internal? Because as we know, the skin is a reflection of internal health. Is there anything internal that she should look into for helping heal her scalp? Like right off the bat, I think increasing omegas, like especially omega 3, because it would decrease inflammation and skin integrity is increased when we increase our omegas. So, is
Definitely.
there certain nutrient profiles that help with reversing dry scalp?
Yeah, like I would once again avoid processed foods, dairy, and alcohol because those are going to be stimulants. And introduce more flax, so flaxseed oil, flax seed, ground flax if she wants to use that in baked goods. Pumpkin seeds are one of my favorites, especially the sprouted pumpkin seeds because your body breaks them down a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
Walnuts, chia seeds are really great. Tofu, surprisingly, and canola oil are also great for balancing.
Interesting. Very cool.
Yeah. She
Excellent.
could also try for her scalp. She could also try the lemon juice or apple cider vinegar or the baking soda paste. Make a paste out of the baking soda and water and let that sit on your scalp for about 10 to 15 minutes and then rinse.
My husband developed a rash, and we couldn't. And he's 6'7", so he has legs like from here to Montana. Like he's just all legs, and he had a rash all the way up his legs and it kept going like up and up and up, but it started on
Hmm.
his legs. And we went to our naturopath and she said, okay, you're gonna try one thing and then you're gonna try another thing. You're gonna try a bath in vinegar, like just put a bunch of vinegar in your bath and sit in it. And then if that doesn't work, you're gonna try baking soda.
Yeah.
And she that's what she the first thing that she does with her patients when they can't figure out where the rash comes from is she has them try to like go a little bit more acidic and then go a little bit more alkaline and see if that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Which was really interesting. Turned out we figured out what the rash was from. My husband his entire life has worn 501 Levi's, like the lighter blue,
Yeah.
and no problem, right? His entire like this is the only pants he wears. I tried to get him into like some really sexy Joe's jeans, or you know what I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
those more sexy stylish jeans. And those are, we have one pair of Joe's jeans and they're his dress jeans for when we go to like formal events. um but other than that, he's in Levi's 501, and which looks so good on him because he's like, the tall skinny leg thing looks great. And all he got a new pair of jeans. We didn't think of anything of it because we get like a new pair of jeans every 6 months, and he has like three or four at any given time. But we get like one new pair of jeans about every 6 months, and because I don't know if you know this about Levi's, they used to be indestructible. Now they like just tear. Like you bend over and they tear. It's just really sad. Their
Oh.
quality has gone way down. Um, and so he got his new pair of jeans and he put it on like he always does, and that's when the rash started. And it was like 2 weeks of nonstop itching, especially at night when he was trying to stay still, and he kept waking me up because in his sleep he would itch his legs, which would
Hmm.
shake the whole bed and wake me up, and then I have to like wake him up to tell him to stop itching.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it, and we figured out whatever Levi started doing, they started using a different chemical or a different dye. He had a horrible reaction to it, and we
Oh,
had
I'll put it into
to
that.
from now on we wash and soak the jeans and wash them, and then he luckily he doesn't have the problem anymore. But I thought that was interesting that the naturopath went straight to, like you say,
The pH.
go that try to get the pH up and then get the pH down and see which one helps. And that was her first go-to. So it's cool that that's what you're kind of telling people to start off with and see if that helps. Um, Now Barnetti asks about sunscreen. She's all about all natural sunscreen. I know she makes her own natural sunscreen at home. What are your thoughts on sunscreen?
Yeah. So try to avoid titanium dioxide. It can be a harsh chemical. It doesn't bother a lot of people, but if you do have sensitive skin or you're looking for something really pure, I would try to avoid that. Look for something with zinc. Um, you can look for something with black seed oil, raspberry seed oil, carrot seed oil. And there are also a lot of really great recipes for natural sunscreens out there.
Do you sell your own natural sunscreen or do you just make it for yourself?
I will be. I'm currently just making it for myself, working on packaging. So I will have that hopefully by next month.
Oh,
So,
so definitely next summer we could all be buying your natural sunscreen.
yeah,
Ah, so cool. Very cool. And I love that because you're coming from the standpoint of making it so healthy that it wouldn't harm someone with a skin condition and yet protect us from the rays. So
yeah,
that's great. That's
definitely.
very cool. Well, you'll have to. I guess our listeners have to get on your email list or something so they get notified when your sunscreen becomes available. What website would they need to go to for that?
So I have a link set up for them at unitedstatesofable.com/Able Healing Collective. And within that link, you're going to get access to my companion book once it launches, and then any video series that I have put out. I'll be posting recipes and things like that. And then also just stay tuned on my blog at unitedstatesofable.com. And
What is United States of Able? What does that mean?
so the United States of Able kind of came about when I was in my master's program. I started just compiling, once again, all this information that I was learning and everything that I thought was interesting to me, I wanted to share with people. And so the United States of Able is all about improving your self efficacy. And so creating a world that is sustainable and nurturing in order for us to just live happily, and have our global commons in such a healthy situation that we're not worried about what's going on, in the news or the politics. As long as we know what we're learning and what we're doing ourselves is healthy and knowledgeable, then we're so incredibly able of so many things.
Oh, cool. United States of Able. I get it. Very cool. I was thinking Able was is that your nickname? Like,
Oh, right.
Able is a cool name for a girl. Maybe
Yeah,
I
that
will
is
steal
cute.
it if I have a girl. That's cool. Very cool. So the links to that will be in the show notes of today's
Mhm.
podcast. Now, Rochelle says her son suffers from contact dermatitis. It's been a slow and long journey. Still trying to figure out all his triggers. Obviously, she should apply everything you've already taught. Any new things you could help someone with contact dermatitis?
With kids, it's kind of tricky because they're encountering things at school and with their friends. But look into the plastics that they're playing with. It could be a slide that they're sliding down in the backyard every day, and perhaps they're reacting on the backs of their legs or something, or they're sleeping with a stuffed animal or a toy that's packed full of chemicals. There are a lot of organic alternatives for most anything out there these days.
Yeah, I think of like Play-Doh and I get freaked
Oh
out because I'm like, my
yeah,
son's gonna eat the gluten Play-Doh. So I had to like buy
right,
the, and then there's soy Play-Doh. I'm like, my son's gonna eat the soy Play-Doh. No! Oh my
right.
gosh. I don't.
And that
So,
slime that kids were making, that was horrible.
oh, right. There's all kinds of weird chemically, like there's these, the sand, that sand that they have now that is like acts like rubber, but then it's
Oh,
sand.
right.
And I
Mhm.
mean, I'm just thinking of all the tactile fun new toys that they have, but they're filled with weird chemicals. Um and then you look at like these Montessori's or these Waldorf schools that they only allow the kids to play with wooden toys. And at first I thought that was insane. Like you're gonna deprive a child of of
Right.
everything. You're just gonna like, here, have this stick, go play. But now I'm starting to get it. Like really, like okay, we allow our kids to play with organic toys, and they'll grow up to become healthier as a result because you're not stressing their immune system. And look at, childhood
Definitely.
cancer is at an all-time high. It's really sad.
Mhm.
So yeah, we really do have to be diligent with what they're playing with and what they're being coming in contact with. So that's
Yeah,
great.
textiles especially.
Mm.
Might be a little hat, his little favorite hat that he's wearing that he's reacting to, or his sheets or something.
Naomi says that she has an itchy scalp and she's had dandruff for years. Oh, she thought she had dandruff for years, but she doesn't. She just has an itchy scalp and she can't stop scratching. So she says
Mm.
her scalp doesn't have dandruff, but it's just dry and itchy. Uh, would you tell her to also try the different, like try upping the pH, try downing the pH with the vinegar or the baking soda? Or for someone who just has a itchy scalp, what do you recommend they do?
I would still try to balance the pH with the other options, but she could also, I don't know if she's tried coconut oil. That's always a good go-to. And also, if she squishes up 2 bananas with an avocado and smears that all over her head, not only is it great for her hair, but it's gonna
Ooh,
calm her scalp down. So
that
it's gonna give
sounds
you that soothing.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like a spa treatment.
Right?
My body would not respond to it, but I'll just take the avocado
Right. Oh, yeah,
and
the bananas.
yeah, and I'll get some hunky man to rub it into my head.
Yeah, and leave it on for about 30 minutes and let it really soak in before you rinse it.
Very neat. Cool. I would have never thought that, but that makes sense. Awesome. Well, is there any other tips or tricks that are really fascinating that you'd like to share with the listeners before we wrap up today's interview?
Um, I guess I guess it all comes down to mindfulness for me because that's what I feel like is the base for any type of healing. So really believing that you can heal and that you're able, once again to come back to the able, I just want to empower people to realize that they can heal themselves and that they can do more research and learn about their worlds, and within that they can also heal the people around them, the people that they love. So just creating that awareness and that mindfulness that we are able to heal and that we are healing, and telling yourself that I am healing and reminding yourself that you're healing just makes such a difference.
I want to tell you about something I really believe in, which is nutrition. On my show, I get to talk to specialists throughout the entire health universe: chiropractors, herbalists, naturopaths, mental and emotional health coaches, and licensed healthcare providers. Amazing pieces to the puzzle we call health. All of these, of course, are supposing that you're actually eating. We, we eat to get all the raw building blocks our body requires. And that's where the problem starts. There's no more food in our food, right? I think everyone knows about the deficiencies in our soil that our food is grown in. Those deficiencies are passed down to us unless we can supplement. Which brings me to takeyoursupplements.com. These people work with my go-to doctor, my go-to naturopath, for all my supplements. I've used them for 7 years. My family and I love them. They work. And if you'd love to address your nutrient deficiencies and figure out what supplements are right for you, then you definitely want to go to takeyoursupplements.com. You put in your information, and within 24 hours, one of their health coaches contact you, and for free, will talk with you and figure out exactly what supplements are best for you, the highest quality for the lowest price that fit into your budget and address your nutrient needs. They're amazing coaches. I've known them for years. I love them. They're wonderful people. They have a huge heart, and they really want to help you to dial in your supplements and your diet and your lifestyle to achieve your health goals. So go to takeyoursupplements.com and put in your information now. That's takeyoursupplements.com. You will be very happy you did.